Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. With this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing a GeForce RTX 4060 in Fallout 4 with the next gen update, which, spoiler alert, it didn't change anything in terms of performance and how it runs, and also in terms of the physics being tied to the FPS, the game locking itself to 60, the CPU bottlenecks in the city, it's all the same. Oh, and it still uses the same VRAM, so the textures weren't really that improved apparently, and there's no DLSS, FSR, and stuff like that, next gen stuff, you know. Moving on. This 4060 that we're using is the MSI Ventus version of the card. We are running it with the latest Nvidia drivers, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power-Ups. GPU's resizable bar is also enabled, and over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D with half of its cores disabled to avoid CPU bottlenecks, and this runs basically the same as a Ryzen 7 7800X3D this way, and we're also pairing it with 32GB of DDR5 6000 MHz RAM in dual channel. Let's get into it, shall we? Alright, let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 1080p resolution, and I'm also going to test this one at 1440p and 4K, and you still can't see the settings inside of the game. Truly next gen, right? And I'm utilizing the Ultra settings preset right here with TAA and 16 samples of anisotropic filtering. On the advanced settings, you still can't utilize the weapon debris setting right here, because if you enable it, the game crashes after like 15 to 30 seconds of gameplay, so that hasn't been fixed. And, well, the only thing, I'm gonna disable motion blur by the way, the only thing that I found was different in this next gen update was actually the fact that when I launched the game for the first time, it auto-detected my RTX 4060 and it set itself to ultra settings, whereas previously it didn't know what the 40 series was and it would automatically set it to low instead. So, yeah, at least now it knows that it's running on a 40 series GPU. Yay. Also, guys, I was browsing the community tab here in Fallout 4 on Steam, and someone asked, how bad is the update? And I asked about what mods stopped working and stuff, and it seems like all of them stopped working. So, yeah, this is great, right? That's another thing that changed with the update. But alright, here we are playing the game now. I'm gonna start counting our FPS. We're starting off in the Boston area of the game, which is very CPU intensive, and it's usually CPU bound with higher end GPUs here. As you can see, FPS are going up to 200, so the running animations are just completely wrecked at this point. We shouldn't be running this fast, but again, the physics are tied to the FPS, and this is what we end up with. If you go up to like 150 plus frames per second, all of the animations will be broken, unfortunately. It's even funnier if I go in first person, by the way. Look at this. Look at how fast he's walking. Jesus Christ. Also, going up to 260 frames per second. Seems like the CPU is a little bit more utilized this time around with the next gen update, so at least there's that. FPS aren't that much higher than previously, but there is a little bit of an improvement there. Previously, it would drop to around like 120 frames per second. Now it's dropping to around 130. Oh, actually, it dropped to 100 right there. No, it's around the same thing, but with a little bit higher CPU usage, because previously I believe it used... Stop it, Jax, please. I don't want to kill you, but you're making me do it. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Anyways, as I was saying, I think previously we would see around 10% CPU utilization, so it seems like it's doing a little bit more on the CPU at least. So that's a minor change here, but hey, it is a change because everywhere else I can't really see much of a difference. Maybe the textures are a little bit better, but there's still nothing special, really. Of course, we're zooming in way too much there, but yeah, if you take a look at the textures right here, yeah, they still look like 2015 textures, I would say. Anyway, that was the performance inside of town, guys, and over here, outside with a lot of vegetation and forest areas, basically, that's where you're gonna see... Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what the hell? That's where you're gonna see the least FPS whenever you are in a GPU-bound configuration like this one. So basically, it can drop down to like the lower 100s. I think we saw like 80 FPS look in this direction when we started, but yeah, it's not dropping that far anymore. 90s there. So once the GPU becomes the limiting factor of performance, the bottleneck in the system, in these areas right here, it's where you're gonna see the least FPS. And it is a fast experience, a smooth experience, you know, with like 80 FPS plus 100% of the time, and sometimes going up to like 200 FPS in other areas that are less GPU bound. So that's it for 1080p, guys. It's very underwhelming to see this next gen update, you know. Yeah, I was expecting better, at least some difference in the graphics, you know. I can't really tell much of a difference, honestly. So yeah, to those people who were telling me that I was dumb and stupid and I shouldn't be testing Fallout 4 a week ago because the next gen update will come in a week's time, well, it's the same thing, okay? Nothing it's Bethesda, guys. You should have known better. Come on, right? I wasn't expecting much of a difference, but I was expecting some difference. This is basically the same. I don't know, man. Anyway, let's stop it right there, guys, and let's play at 1440p for a little bit. Okay, so again, I need to do it outside of the game. You can't really change many of the settings inside of the game. Playing at 1440p now, using the same ultra settings here. No motion blur. That's it. I mean, maybe these textures in these items are a little bit more detailed while you're in the loading screen. So maybe like once you go first person, the textures on the weapon are better. But even the VRAM allocation and usage there are kind of the same as they were previously before the update. So yeah, guys, I don't think anything changed, really. Maybe it isn't even applied yet, and they messed up something in the application of the update, but since people are complaining about their mods not working anymore, I guess it is applied. They didn't add new settings like DLSS and FSR like I thought they would, at least FSR, you know? So yeah, this is what we have here. Also, guys, at 1440p in this foresty area, it's dropping down into the 60s. So very similar performance to what we saw with the RTX 3060, although we can't really directly compare things because these are slightly different areas that I'm testing here between the two GPUs. But yeah, I also saw that GPU dropping into the 60s and often into the 50s at 1440p ultra settings. 4060 being a little bit faster than the 3060, it makes sense that it only drops to like 60 FPS and not from 60 FPS. So I think you can rest assured that it shouldn't drop very often into the 50s, but yeah, if you took a look at the frame time right there, or the FPS counter actually, it does drop sometimes. Most of the time it is very playable, it is going to be a smooth experience. If you lock it to 60 FPS, it's gonna stay there for the most part. It will have a couple of slowdowns in these intensive areas with a lot of vegetation around and stuff, but yeah, most of the time you can expect the 4060 not to max out in this game if you have a 60 FPS lock. Yeah, I really think these look a little bit better, guys. Maybe it's just placebo, I don't know. I'm trying to find things that are different, and I'm failing miserably at it, probably. Anyways, in the city, things are a little bit less janky in terms of, like, the running animations being completely broken and stuff, but they're still a bit faster than they should be, because it's still above 100 frames per second. It's definitely not as bad, though, as it was before, but we're still seeing a CPU bottleneck even at 1440p ultra settings with this GPU right here. And one of the best CPUs for gaming in the market, by the way. So that's a little bit concerning, you know. I really thought they would also fix the CPU bottlenecking issues, especially since CPU usage seems to be a little bit higher than it was before. But no, it's kind of the same. It's running the same as well, even in the city, guys. Anyway, if you've been wanting to play some Fallout 4 here on a 4060, it's gonna work absolutely fine, even at 1440p. The 8GB of memory or VRAM are also enough, obviously. This is an older title. Even with the next-gen update, that's not a problem whatsoever. You know what? At the very least, they didn't make the game super-duper intensive, right? And make it run at, like, 30 FPS and 1440p ultra settings on a 4060, like most of new recent games, you know? Basically, it's not more intensive than it was. And that's a plus, of course, because that means that you can still play it even on like GT 1030s, GTX 1050s, 1050 Ti, 750 Ti as well. It will not have a problem whatsoever with this. Yep. I'm gonna stop it right there, and we're gonna go ahead and play at 1440p high this time around. And you know what? Before we do that, why not take a look at the update notes, see if we can find something about performance here. I don't think so. There are bug fixes. That's great. PC only. Wait a second. So apparently the next gen update is not available on GOG yet, but it will be available soon. And they resolved an issue preventing saves from... Okay. Again, nothing changed. This is exactly what I read a week ago, and people told me I was crazy for testing the game a week ago, because the next gen will change everything. Anyway, let's do 1440p high settings now, guys. I'm just gonna disable motion blur, and this is it. You can see a lot of things changed here in the settings. Let's go. And here we have it. This is 1440p high settings preset this time around. I'm going to start counting our FPS, and it's getting 130, so way higher performance than what we saw previously, I guess. Down into the 100s sometimes, lower 100s, you know. Yeah, the minimum FPS dropped by quite a lot, as you can see. 90s, 100s. It doesn't even drop from 90 FPS, whereas previously at 1440p ultra settings, it was dropping into the 50s at times. So if you are playing on a 4060 at 1440p resolution, I would definitely choose the high preset. Remember to disable motion blur, because nobody likes that, right? I mean, some people do. That's fine. I don't care, guys. I just don't like motion blur. But yeah, it's quite a smooth experience here. One thing that I really like about this game, because it's an older title, you know, is that it doesn't stutter whatsoever. That's a breath of fresh air compared to other games that come out these days. At least we have a very smooth experience. Even though you need to lock it to 60 FPS, I prefer a locked 60 FPS without stuttering issues whatsoever than 120, 200 FPS experience with a ton of stutterings every like 5 seconds or so. Like in Fortnite, for example. That game's completely broken when it comes to stuttering. But yeah, this is gonna be a really good experience here at the 1440p high settings. In the city area, it's just gonna run even better, of course, because it's less GPU bound. Actually, since we're now on high settings, it will probably get 80-ish% GPU usage most of the time in the city area. So it's a bit of a shame in terms of that CPU bottlenecking issues in this game. And remember, I am using a 7800X3D essentially. If you have a slower CPU, you will see lower FPS in the city areas. Okay, I just loaded the city again, guys. Here we are, 100% GPU usage sometimes, but yeah, right now it's dropping. It's fluctuating a little bit, 50% right there. That was a massive drop, probably just loading something. Yeah, down into the 90s at times. This is pretty concerning, though, because again, this is a really fast CPU that we're utilizing. If you have a slower CPU, I mean, as long as you get 60 plus FPS, or it's capable of getting 60 plus FPS, you're going to be fine. If you lock the FPS to 60, it's going to run basically the same everywhere. But if you have something like a Ryzen 5 2600, for example, or 3600 maybe even, yeah, then it will drop from 60 FPS and it's going to be noticeable and a little bit of a crappy experience, especially given that the game is so old. Anyway, let's try it out for a little bit at 4K next. Alright, here we go. 3840 by 2160 is going to be the last resolution tested in this video. High settings preset still. Okay, so 4K high settings is alright. It does drop into the 40s. I was expecting it, honestly, because 3060 also dropped like into the 30s, I believe. So it's not gonna stay at 60 FPS all of the time, unfortunately, in these more intensive areas with a lot of vegetation. It will drop into the 50s sometimes. Not from 50 by a lot, you know, we saw like 49, 48 frames per second sometimes, and I guess that's gonna be the minimum you can expect in this game. Maybe a little bit lower than that if you do some explosions and stuff like that at the same time as you are here, but overall, it's going to be an okay experience, right? If you play with a controller especially, it's gonna be smooth-ish. Hello, Hulk, how's it going? Oh boy. He can't even hit me. Oh, come on. There we go. Oh my god, that's a huge explosion right there. Well, good to see the huge explosion didn't really drop our FPS by too much, right? That was very similar to what we were seeing before. Alright, it's not too bad. Again, I was expecting a little bit worse performance. Right now, CPU usage is actually at 8%, 7%. So maybe the CPU usage is still kind of the same as it was previously before the next gen update. It was just placebo after all, guys. And going by the update notes, it definitely was placebo, guys. I probably saw the CPU utilization or remembered the CPU utilization from 4K resolution testing with the 3060 and figured, well, yeah, maybe the game doesn't use that much CPU because it's old, and now I saw 20% usage and I thought, no, it must be doing something differently, but no. Definitely not. Now, guys, I'm gonna keep testing this game in other GPUs as well, because it's popular again, you know, a lot of people are playing it, and you might be interested in buying it and knowing the performance of different GPUs, so yeah, expect a few more videos coming in Fallout 4, but I'm not gonna retest the 3060 and the 4080 Super that I tested last week, because, again, it is exactly the same. I thought I would need to retest them, and I was lining up the 3060 to be the next GPU I tested here in the next gen update, but there's no need. Again, it is exactly the same. Lastly, we got 4K resolution using the medium settings preset, guys. It changes a lot of things once again. I'm gonna disable motion blur there. These ones are really low at the moment compared to high, actually, the sliders there. Alright, here we have it, still looking very similar to high settings, but now, of course, we gained a little bit of FPS compared to the high preset, going up to the 90s at times, not bad. Let's kill this guy right here. We actually saw it drop to like the high 50s around this area once the guy exploded. Hello? Where is he? There he is. Okay, hello, 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 stop it! Stop it! Thank you! Why don't you explode? Wait, oh, that exploded, not the guy. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Huge explosion, and it didn't drop anywhere near 60 FPS. So we gained a good 10-15 frames per second compared to previously, which makes a big difference, actually. You know, it's going to be a locked 60 FPS experience all of the time now in Fallout 4 at 4K medium settings. I don't think the 3060 could do it at 60 plus all of the time. So once again, we're seeing a little bit of an improvement there, coming from 3060 to 4060 in this game. Can I explode this one? Yes! The red cars explode. Interesting. 59 FPS right there, minimum. Okay. But yeah, it's a much smoother experience. I wouldn't drop it down to low settings, even if it dips down into the high 50s every now and again. It does look way better on medium than low. Low starts looking pretty rough, you know. Also, if you want to play on like a 4K TV, for example, to enjoy the visuals a little bit better, I think this still looks better than like 1080p Ultra. So I'd do that with the 4060. All right, and that's been it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll be back soon with another one. Catch you guys then. Love you all. Bye-bye.